So we didn't know where we were, and we were incredibly lucky, therefore, 3 days later to come across a tiny little island in the middle of the Indian Ocean called Al Amsterdam. Which you can see on Google Maps, but you have to zoom right in. And on this island is a very small French base, and it had a doctor. So I had multiple head operations, but unfortunately with no anaesthetic, because of course you're on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it just wasn't equipped to do that. So that is a pivotal moment in the book, because from that moment it becomes clear, and even became clear to me as a little girl, that this was a very dangerous voyage. You know, all the stories about it just being a kind of a great adventure were true in part, but it was incredibly dangerous, this route that we were taking around the world.
I'd long thought as a reader, I must try my hand at creating something that I would really enjoy, that I would pick up off the shelf in the bookshop and take home and devour quickly. And so I just started. Well, I was a medical student, and I was at school doing my hires, then I was a medical student, then I was a junior doctor. I just never had any time in my life. And it wasn't until I went to Antarctica as the British Antarctic Survey doctor that for the first time in my life that wheel stopped. And I was on this place 600 miles from the South Pole with 12 healthy colleagues, and I had nothing to do. And that was when I began to write. So I wrote my first book in Antarctica because it was the first time in my life I'd not had something else to do.
Yeah, so in the end, I took 2 weeks up in Scotland. I needed to get away, but that wasn't about. I said to Kate, "Look, I need to go and write stuff."
I thought when you had your 2 weeks in Scotland to get away, you didn't actually do any writing.
No, I didn't. That's
That's
what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went up into Scotland, and I actually thought that I needed it to write, but actually, what I needed, the end of the walk had been so intense. We were working so hard, and there were so many people on the coastline looking for us. It was all a bit of a blur. So I said that it was to go and write, and that was the intentions. But when I went up there, I think I just needed clarification that it was done, that it was over, and maybe go back up to Scotland and have a bit of freedom again where I'm allowed to camp.
You probably needed to process what had happened.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yes.
It had been a lifestyle. It wasn't just a journey. It was a lifestyle. Right. So I kind of just think to myself, right, okay, what next? What are we going to do next? And once I'd processed that a bit, then I could start writing. So the second book I wrote in a week and a half.
Yeah.
A week and a half. I haven't got a clue what's in it.
Are you scared all the time you're there? Or do you feel quite safe?
I feel quite safe there. It's not because I'm terribly brave. I'm scared of swimming pools, dentists, loneliness, you know. I would really stress that we can't go on the Russian side. My rule is keep away from the Russians, right? And I follow that. But I'm always in a place where, by and large, all the people there want me to be there. All the soldiers I've worked with and been around have been the most chivalrous and sweet people I've ever met. It's not like if I was reporting on, a civil war in parts of Africa and there's a jeep and I don't know who's in it and I could be kidnapped, and that would be terrifying. That would be absolutely terrifying. In Ukraine, everyone around me has got my back, and that makes such a difference. I think psychologically, the threat comes from the sky, and you just take that in your stride. You just factor that into the day.
Roman historians, by and large, are not very interested in people who are not upper class, who are not emperors and kind of members of the elite. And so the challenge of writing about other classes of people, and indeed about people across the empire, is quite challenging. The huge advantage that this period has is that this is the period that witnesses the destruction of Pompeii and Herculaneum. And when I say destruction, what I should have said, of course, is preservation, because it gets buried. And the excavations that are ongoing, and I'm so relieved that all the excavations that have been happening over the past few weeks have not turned up the long-lost biography that would have changed. Huge relief.
The kind of flashes of both herself as a woman and herself as a writer, grappling with material, trying to wrestle with lack of inspiration or inability to write or fear of writing. She talks at one point about the fear of writing being actually the fear of commitment, because at the beginning of a project especially, but also all the way through, you are faced with choices. And I find that paralysis as well when you have done your research or as much research as you need to make a start. And then you think of all the different ways in which you could start this. Do you start it with this? Do you start it in a gentle way, moving in, or do you start it with a, and as she says, whichever way you commit yourself to, that's kind of it.
I never blame the young generation in China because many people say, oh, they don't care about life, they don't care. But if you're living this kind of silent family, if you're living this kind of society, censorship, there is nothing in the, social media. You can't open the WhatsApp in China at all. Google, nothing. So if you don't have a proper history, we don't have a proper history from 1911 until now. 10 years cultural revolution in China published history, only half page.
But we have never had the fulfillment of Lionel's dream of a big screen representation of Boswell or of a Braveheart version of General Paoli to be directed by Mel Gibson in Lionel's dreams.
Yes, that's actually a story. We were the documentary about Paoli that we are working on is actually how we, Corsican TV crew, try to go and find a Hollywood director to make a Corsican Braveheart. So we chased Mel Gibson. And I can spoil it, we met him. And we talked about Paoli and we gave him the Boswell book. So Mel Gibson has it. Will he make the movie? I'm not sure about this yet. But I'm pretty sure that's what we try to bring to the story. I think if Boswell should be in a movie, I believe it should be the adventurous part of it, of him going to Corsica. Obviously, I'm praying, I play for my church. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I go into schools and I talk to teachers, the kids haven't yet absorbed the cringe. And I think it's important to acknowledge where the cringe comes from. Everyone laughs at the Glasgow uni accent. Why are people who go to university in Glasgow in Scotland having to change their accent, having to adopt an affected accent? Nothing happens in a vacuum. The cringe doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a cultural hangover from when you said, rightly, that Waynes were beaten in school for using Scots and Gaelic and being left-handed and all this stuff. They don't beat Waynes anymore, but they do still shame them for using Scots. And that's why, with the recent passing of the Scottish Languages Bill, hopefully we'll see a change. And, Shetland is one of the absolute pioneers when it comes to using language and using it well and using it shamelessly.
An IRA active service unit put together a plan. And their plan was to plant a bomb behind the cistern in the loo directly behind the Royal Box in the Dominion Theatre. And this photo was taken on a lovely warm summer's evening in July 1983. And they're at the Dominion Theatre, just off the Tottenham Court Road. And Duran Duran are about to play a 10-song set inside. It's a concert in aid of the Prince's Trust. And very soon after this photo is taken, Diana and Charles, who's just out of shot, are led through to the Royal Box. And they sit down in the Royal Box, and there's a loo just behind the Royal Box. But on this occasion, there was no explosion. And the reason for that is that the man who was told to plant the bomb was actually a spy.